Older people of Reddit, what is something you've done in life that would shock your children, grandchildren, younger family members if they found out? I was addicted to H for a while. I don't think it's something that I'll always keep from her. I'm just waiting for the right time to tell her. Stay clean, buddy. Congrats on sobriety. I'm a university professor and it's pretty clear from the way some of my students interact with me that they would be shocked to know I was an excuse-making, assignment-tricking student just like they are, and that I thought I invented a lot of those tricks and strategies to get around doing the work or doing it on time, the same way they do now. I think it would also shock them how much it annoys me when they try to be tricky, and how much I relate to them when they are honest with me about why they can't get something done or do it as it was assigned. Most students have trouble planning around all the work they have. I get it. I was a student. I was a student for a long time. This is one of the main reasons that I have no questions asked lateness policy. Everyone gets to hand in 2 assignments 1 day late or 1-2 days late, and they don't need any kind of excuse. And, though I like being free of the annoyance of having my students treat me like an idiot with some of their cockamamie excuses, I also like it this way because I feel that you shouldn't need to be really sick or have a death in the family or whatever to just need an extra day or 2 to do something. Thank you. Not something I've done, but it's a confession my grandpa made on his deathbed. We were watching football on the TV and my mum asked what he did as a kid for fun. He used to blow up frogs. Stick a straw inside and blow. Mum: oh, but you didn't do that every day, did you? Grandpa mumbling: no, every other day. What the frick? Not me, but my mom. At my mom's funeral, I found out that she and her friend stole a plane when they were 16. I was freaking floored when I heard that. I knew she was a no-balls person, but I clearly didn't know the extent. It would be easier to list the things I didn't do. All the usual 60s, 70s, 80s stuff. In spades, in groups, and in the altogether. Which is why my grandson has yet to be able to put anything over on the old woman, no matter how clever he thinks he is. Sorry, kid. I know the symptoms of every different kind of high you can get, from the outside and the inside, and I have ears to hear the almost silence of you and your study buddy not exactly studying, not to mention a nose that can detect trace minerals at 6 meters, let alone what you two are perfuming the room with. Why do you think those condoms miraculously appeared on your desk? You sound like a very good grandma. I used to be a strippogram, was from 18 to 29. All through this time I was with my HSBF and I'm now married to him decades on. I am now a rosy-cheeked, middle-aged housewife with 2 teenage kids. My previous job is known by older family members, but the kids don't have a clue. As far as they know, I did agency work in my 20s. My daughter would be mortified if she found out. LOL. No regrets. It supported him through college and we were able to buy a house at 27 with no family assistance whatsoever. And I also had a lots of dress-up outfits for sex. I just find it really funny when my kids think I don't get modern memes or internet culture. They need to realize that their surprise Pikachu and change my mind guy will same day be just as old as my all your base are belong to us and badger, mushroom. I watched some girl stuff a bottle up in herself. Then my cousin had sex with her. We started a fire right by a firehouse. We walked to a store for cigarettes and got robbed on the way back. Assuming all of this happened in the same night makes for one heck of a roller coaster. My kids are just hitting their teens. Before I met their mother I had a MMFM with a pregnant woman and her husband. My wife knows about it but I'm pretty sure my kids would be shocked. This is almost exactly why I asked. I did something similar, except I was the female and not pregnant. Picturing me getting older, my children becoming adults. It makes me laugh knowing they'd never consider I would do anything like that. I used to be a very active and somewhat prominent member of the BDSM community. I helped organize events and was DM for a few more, as well as a participant in even more. I've beaten people black and blue and they loved me for it. If my son ever asks me why I am so good at making things out of leather, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lie about it. He just better stay out of my closet because some things just can't be unseen. I let my neighbor's cat into the house. I was sick. lonely, and feeling sorry for myself, so I wanted the company. The little butthole stole my fur-tail butt plug off my bed when I wasn't looking and brought it home to my neighbor. My neighbor posted a photo of the butt plug on a local gossip page on Facebook with our street name, asking someone to pick up their butt plug. It got thousands of likes and tens of thousands of comments in the span of a couple of hours. Literally the entire freaking town saw my butt plug. The post got so much notoriety that a local radio station talked about it briefly a few days later. During the time it took for this whole thing to blow over, I spent equal amounts of time laughing at the whole ordeal and shaking from fear that someone might link me to the butt plug publicly. Nobody knows it was mine. And that's the story of my famous butthole. Oh boy, if I could favor comment. Define older. When I was about 21, I made an improvised bomb and blew up a random van in the middle of downtown. Chose it specifically because it was clearly gutted and abandoned and nobody around for quite a ways. Got caught, interrogated, apartment searched, eventually confessed. Cops asked why I chose that van, repeated what I said above. They said, so you weren't trying to hurt someone? I said no, absolutely not, just wanted to see if it worked. Turns out the van had been appraised at $50 and they couldn't find the owner. Cops said never, ever do that again. We'll call you in a few days to see what's going to be done about this. That was 17 years ago. Still waiting for the call. So yeah, made a bomb, blew up a vehicle in the middle of town, caught, let go. To be white in the Midwest. Post 9/11 it would have been, that was 17 years ago. Still waiting for the call that I'm getting out of Supermax at ADX Florence. Threesomes. Partying with music artists. Drugs. Cuddle puddles. Music festivals. I like experiencing things, but I remember being a kid too. I'm sure they're going to assume I'm a boring super uncool person who can't possibly understand LOL. Not me, but my aunt. Sweetest old lady alive. She's a grandma. We had to casually explain to her that crank means M. Apparently she was just smoking that crap occasionally back in the 70s and had no idea what it was. All this time I thought crack meant the low grade C. M wasn't invented in the 60s, 70s and early 80s, but crack was already a term. Not sure. It makes sense to me that she thinks crack is H low grade C and not M. At 50 years old, let's just say that I'm thankful smartphones, cameras, didn't exist during the 90s. That entire decade was a blur. Everything between first hearing Smells Like Teen Spirit to 9/11 happening is just gone. I was so well behaved and never put a foot wrong. Never did anything untoward all through my teens, 20s and 30s. I turned 40 and all heck broke loose. Most of my friends, all my relatives and kids think I'm some perfect little homemaker who wouldn't bark back at a dog. Totally unrepentant and having the time of my life. What's more, I appreciate it and enjoy it with no self-consciousness or guilt that I probably would have felt as a younger person. I may also have a bit more self-preservation and common sense about it too in a weird way, and I can afford it now. This is me. I'm 48. I've done far more stuff that would shock my teenage kids over the last 5-10 years than I did when I was their age. And yeah, getting to a point in life where I can do this stuff and not have any kind of guilt hang-ups about it is a nice bonus. I broke my arm while arm wrestling in a gay bar. I was divorced and hadn't been out in the months. Two friends said, hey, come with us. What's the worst thing that could happen? I almost won, but my arm snapped. I have teenage stepkids and try to be as transparent about my escapades as a youngster as possible. I regularly embarrass them, but I am hoping they hear the reasons why I wish I had done something different. This is not always conservative wisdom. One confession is wishing I had just had sex with first husband rather than marry him. That conservative southern upbringing combined with a high sex drive led to some crappy marital decisions. My mom did a lot of this with me. Intellectually I knew about her past, but it almost seems like she was telling stories about a different person, because she would never dream of repeating those bad decisions. It was like another life. My grandmother on the other hand, always worked very hard to project southern conservative perfection. Was more than a little shocked she had her own string of crappy marital decisions in her past. Worked in a brothel for one night. not as a prostitute but as security. I was 16 at the time and wanted to make some money to use to go to raves every weekend. I asked my gangster friend if he had anything I could do. He said he'd get back to me. A few days later I get a call that 2 of the guys working security wanted the night off, so me and my buddy took their spot. My job was to watch the security cameras and make sure it was only our van full of customers coming back in and not some rival gangs coming to rob the place. It was more of a just for show job because he told me if I really saw a gang coming, just hop the fence and run for it. Anyway, 2 vans would constantly pick up customers. I would spot it on the camera and open the door for them. It was quite fascinating watch the types of customers coming in and what they choose to sleep with. 2 things in particular stuck with me all these years. There were about 7 women, 6 in their 20s and 1 that was clearly in her 30s, and as you would guess, she was chosen to go upstairs the least. There was also a group of construction workers who clearly just got off work, and when the girls all lined up, the men actually started being polite with one another like you can go first type of thing. Ultimately, 3 of them chose the same girl, 2 chose the leftovers but not the poor 30-year-old. Was quite gross. Was a one-time thing. I forgot how much I was paid for my 6 hours of work. Might have been $80 100. Saw a lot of things that stuck with me ever since. I was really wild in my 20s. And I also used to steal abused animals in the middle of the night if the owners wouldn't surrender them to me. I'm not ashamed of that, and it's kind of a passed on family tradition. Lots of dumb crap. Like the time we burned down a playground. No, I am not proud. Yes, I am ashamed. Or the time I stole a bike from a mailman and burned the thing in the woods. Shame really. Or the time we blew a hole in a brick wall. Who TF had access to those explosives and stole wine and beer from a warehouse, or stole mopeds and cars, and all the drugs. Oh, the drugs. Got life turned around 15 years ago. Never looking back, except in threads about dumb crap I've done, that is. Someday my grandchildren will learn about how dad grandpa spent his 20s getting drunk, high tripping and screaming about gutting and raping corpses in various death metal bands. I can't wait. In 1st grade, me and my friend would take our survivor knives to school. These were not plastic knives but full grade military knives complete with sharpeners, hooks for fishing, compass, etc. We would spend our recess sharpening the knives, trying to get them to be as sharp as possible so we could cut sticks and twigs to make nice walking sticks. We never got picked on. Gave my boyfriend a BJ in his Corvette coming back from a trip to Myrtle Beach. Doing 80 miles per hour and passing a joint back and forth between us. Truckers could see us. We didn't care. Full on intercourse in a Datsun B210 at 75 miles per hour. So at 80 miles per hour, you were a little wilder than me. I'm 6 feet 1 inches. I'm pretty straight-laced kind of guy. I've just found life easier when I obey the rules, and everyone knows this. My family and a lot of my friends would be pretty shocked to know I spent 18 months as part of a throuple. I'm the last person anyone thinks would ever have a threesome, much less a couple times a week for a year and a half. I had a better one but the family found out about it. No one in my life knew I had kids. I mean, I had made private sperm donations to a couple of loose acquaintances, which isn't the same, but there are a couple of half-me's around that no one knew about for a while. Well, I found out a bunch of stuff about my dad recently from some of his old buddies. I'm basically a younger version of him. He is an exec at a $1 billion a year construction company. Very straight edge, straight-laced, timid dude, no drugs, doesn't really drink. When he was younger he used to hang around with a motorcycle club. One time he stabbed some dude in a bar fight. He also used to sell and transport narcotics. I'm not old, but I'm 28, who is a college graduate and someone with a professional job that works with executives daily at a bank. If I told them that 10 years ago when I was just out of high school, early college, that I was a kleptomaniac, they would probably drop their jaw. I didn't steal from people ever, but big box stores were all fair game. I didn't even have a reason. Well-to-do family with anything I could really ask for. I'd steal clothes, trading cards, food, drinks. Just about anything. It was all for the adrenaline rush of going through with the mission and not getting caught. I'd leave them all with $250 worth of clothes. I'm talking 5/6 shirts and 3/4 pairs of pants. My parents never questioned how I'd have all this new stuff. I guess they just didn't pay attention. I only stopped because almost got caught one day. Buzzer went off and I made a run for it. Dropped all my goods in the parking lot and vowed to not steal again. Was a heck of a ride while it lasted. Also, it is super easy to steal from places like Walmart. Most people just don't give a dang. My grandpa told me he would bring fireworks to pay when he was a teenager and scare the teacher. Why can't we do this anymore? Fortunately, my kid was too young to remember the time he helped my husband Elmer all shine me in my latex dress in preparation for a dungeon party. You look like a superhero, that's right, kid. Just don't ask what my powers are. I'm going to guess your powers are doing laundry and oil changes. Back in the text BBS days, I had some very adult conversations with gentlemen all over the world. Sometimes we exchanged pics. There are photographs of me that are less than safe for work that if unlucky have been discarded by now, some 20 plus years later. If I'm unlucky, they're in a drawer somewhere waiting to creep out someone else's children. I'm 61. I nearly died in several different accidents. I'm lucky to be alive. First joint at 14. First blotter at 15. That might surprise my nieces and nephew, but maybe not. The usual 70s college pre-HIV sexcapades. Had a long relationship with a woman 20 years older when I was in my 20s. You know, stuff like that. When I was in my 20s, I had a relationship with a man 30 years older than me. He was the same age as my dad. I'm positive my kids would be shocked by that. Took copious amounts of drugs and had lots and lots of boyfriends. My great grandmother used to box all the time. Her friends would all bet candy bars on her to beat any guys, which she usually did. We didn't find out until she told us when she was in her 90s. That's amazing. If there were any photos of me in my very revealing Pat Bennett our bartender outfit from 81 with my straight up punk haircut and blacked out eyes and lines of coke on the bar, now I look like your uptight grandmother. I was wild in the 80s. Both my parents have always been very open about their wilder days when they were younger, because I think they wanted to make sure there was always an open dialogue on things like sex and drugs and partying, and so that I never grew up feeling ashamed or like I had to hide anything from them as long as I was doing the right thing. I was always told that there's a time and place for everything and that I shouldn't feel bad for wanting to explore and experiment as long as I was in safe space to do so. They let me and my friends get high at our house because they didn't want me getting into trouble with the law over a joint. They pretty much went and bought me a box of condoms as soon as they detected my female best friend and I weren't exactly strictly being platonic, and they used to buy me alcohol so they could make sure I was drinking safe amounts when I did, so they weren't exactly able to shock me with anything they may or may not have done. However, I did find it pretty shocking when my mum told me about her H addiction in her 20s and showed me her track mark that had got infected and led to scarring, which she said was her reminder to never touch that crap again, her words. She also told me pretty straight up that the reason she got addicted to H was because it felt freaking amazing again, her words, so she never tried to lie or obfuscate the realities of the drug. Suffice to say, it scared me enough to never try it. My dad also shared a pretty messed up story of him taking Datura when he was younger and how he was scarred for life mentally after that, and stopped him taking any drug, even weed. That was pretty intense too. My dad was shocked to discover me swimming naked outside at 2 AM in the rain. He asked what the heck I was doing. I enthusiastically waved and said, "I'm trippin', Dad." Heck yeah, my dude. My parents-in-law's infant son will never know that my wife and I met in a party house and got close after the house we were staying at got raided by the police while she was tripping on shrooms. We got released at the same time. We weren't arrested, just detained, and I hung out with her till she calmed down. 6 years later we're married, have a kid, 8 months today, and are buying a house. When I was 17 back in '75, I walked into the house and my dad had my 13-year-old sister pinned to the kitchen table with one hand and a bag of pot in the other. He was screaming, "WTF, did you get this?" She finally blurted out a name and my dad turned to me and said, "Go get him, if I do I'll go to prison." I went and found the guy in the parking lot of the local swimming pool dealing pot to underage girls. I left him lying in convulsions. I almost beat him to death. By the time I got home, his parents were on the phone telling my dad they were going to have me arrested for attempted murder. My dad told his dad, if you have my son arrested, I will press charges against your drug dealing son for statutory rape. Back in the 70s, that was a charge people took seriously and we never heard another word about it. I think about it all the time on how life would have changed so drastically had he died. I'm very mild now, but when I was younger I was a hardy D1 linebacker in the then Pac-10. Most people that meet me now find it hard to believe, but personally I don't feel the need to prove my manliness to anyone. I put a God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve bumper sticker on my car during the Great Gays in the Military debate of '93. I always wonder what that's meant to accomplish. Like a gay person on their way to work is going to see this bumper sticker and softly whispered at himself, crap, it's true, I must become straight post haste. Not me, but my granddad. He lit some bales of hay on fire and threw them out in the middle of Main Street one night just for fun. He let all of the air out of the tires on his old truck and then drove down the railroad tracks to a town about 30 miles away. Not me, but some old dude I know who lives in a nursing home. My mom works at said nursing home and I pick her up from work. That I sometimes like to talk to recently told me he watches hentai with another woman. The man is 83 and the woman is 81. Oh. I found my 72-year-old grandmother's vibrator with butt tickler attachment. Never looked for socks to borrow again. Frick that. I don't think that was a butt tickler. Farm boy. Death was as much a part of life as anything else. The fall chicken slaughter was just another chore like hosing out the stables or putting hay in the feed trough. When the bee we kept on the premises had pups, we'd take our choice and drown the rest in a water trough, or just smack them with the back of a shovel and bury them. It was necessary since there would have rapidly been far too many to feed or give a humane amount of attention to, and would only contribute to the feral population. You could not give them away since just about every farm within 100 miles had the same problem. Of course, you mention this at all to younger people who aren't from rural areas and they flip out. When culling is just a chore. You don't have to be some kind of bloodthirsty psychopath to do it. It's normal until you blunder into the wrong audience one day and people liken you to Hitler himself and suggest you should be put to death. I understand better now, but it's quite hostile and shocking at first. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is why older folks are always saying, don't you know where your food comes from? It's like that old episode of The Simpsons, where Bart protects and nurtures an invasive species and the show condones it because he thought killing them would be cruel. Every cruelty is learnt from nature. The reverse here. I'm really boring, but my mom has been rather adventurous in her time. Enough so for me to claim as a teenager that I was well under budget when it came to doing stupid crap. And she should definitely let me do. Insert questionable idea here. I was recently reminiscing with my cousin and grandmother of memories of my grandfather who passed around 2.5 years ago. We were talking all the usual things of his last few weeks and her best memories of him, when out of nowhere she drops a bombshell. A little context on my grandfather: he was in butthole, to put it quite simple, but in the best way. You don't pee him off, you've got no problems. You do pee him off, heck will be brought upon your mortal coil. He wouldn't let his 3 children, or 20 plus grandchildren for that matter, even watch TV and eat food at the same time purely because they may make a mess. Out of nowhere my grandmother just says, I remember we were down the pub once and decided to just do some acid. Police officer tried speaking to us and he told them to frick off, so they did. My cousin and I were completely floored by this. Never has my grandmother told anyone, not even her children, this story, and hearing it was such a strange moment of comic relief in a grief-stricken moment. It was honestly amazing. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.